is a good relationship important? For you to live longer, be healthier, or to feel richer? At House of Hope, we value a long-lasting relationship. That's why we tailor our programs to create a harmonious relationship between our services and clientele. House of Hope is your professional service provider for home-based applied behavior analysis, or ABA therapy and consultation for individuals with autism. We also provide speech therapy, occupational therapy, and shadow teaching services in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and the Northern Emirates. In addition to that, we have a team of highly qualified, trustworthy, and well-experienced registered behavior technicians as our ABA therapists and shadow teachers who are ready to provide for your needs. All our programs are supervised by a leading board-certified behavior analyst with multicultural experience here in the United Arab Emirates and abroad. To know more about House of Hope, visit our website at www.houseofhope.center or call us at 056-398-4783. House of Hope. We will brighten up your day.
This morning, we will be talking about behavior. So maybe some of you are a little bit tired, or maybe some of you are a little bit sleepy, but let's try to make this more interactive. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If I start to talk very fast, please let me know, because I tend to do that when I'm speaking. Just be comfortable, ask questions. If you want to answer, feel free to answer the questions that we're gonna raise. So during this, during this training, we're gonna be having some information, but in between, we will also be divided into groups so that you can discuss together what we will be talking about. And you can also share your inputs, like what Paul said. So maybe we can start. So actually, Paul introduced himself and the rest of us. I also would like to know your names. Can I know your name, please?
Hi, good morning. My name is Carmen.
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 My name is Jessica.
Jessica. Hello.
Rona.
Rona. Your name? Lisa. Elaine. Okay. Jermaine. All right. Jean. All right. So at least now we know each other. You don't only know our names, but we also know your names. So now, like what I said, we will be talking about introduction to behavior change. So I know in the classroom, you've seen a lot of challenging behaviors, so we will be talking more about that later. So more of our discussion would be basic information about behavior, how to deal with behavior, and how to make a plan eventually in the end. So our agenda is, we're going to talk about briefly what ABA is, what is behavior, what is the function. We will be able to know what is the function of the behavior. We will also identify the basic treatment options. We will also know what is reinforcement and how it works for our program, and how do we create an environment of learning. I know some of you heard about ABA. I'm going to put this back. I want to know, what are your thoughts or ideas about ABA? Aside from that, do you have anything? I'm not sure if you've heard of it, or maybe some of you, but if you've heard of it, I would like to know, what have you heard about it? Anyone? Wala. Okay, so actually, good thing, because actually there are some misconceptions about ABA. ABA stands for Applied Behavioral Analysis. So Applied Behavioral Analysis focuses more on behavior. So we study human behavior. The thing is, people think that ABA is only for autism. They think, ABA is the only treatment for autism. Actually, when you think about it, there are so many approaches to use during therapies. It's not only ABA. So at least that's clear for everyone. That's not the only treatment for autism, because I think for others, they think that that's the only treatment. And also, it's not only for, it's not only used for kids with special needs. It's not only used for therapies for autism, but it's also used, you can see it every day. And you will understand why am I saying this to you. You can see it when you deal with your friends. You can see it in the classroom when the teacher speaks with the students. You can see it when you're speaking with your husband, when you're dealing with a person who's difficult to deal with. Anyway, we'll discuss that further. So, there. So, any ABA can be used anywhere, anytime, and to every person. So, what is behavior? So, there are 4 key principles of behavior. So, one is behavior occurs in a context. Another is behavior serves as a function. Third, behavior is learned. And fourth, it can also always be changed. It's not permanent. Not because, for example, a kid cries in the classroom, doesn't mean it can't be changed. It can always be changed. We just need to set up, we just need to teach him how. Right? So, first is, what's the first principle? Behavior occurs in a context, right? So we will be talking more about that in the next few slides. So behavior occurs in a context. So as you can see in the slide, there's antecedent, behavior, and the consequence, right? Antecedent precedes the behavior. Behavior is the observable or measurable act. Consequence is what comes after the behavior or what follows the behavior. It determines the likelihood of the reoccurrence. So, behavior doesn't really occur in a vacuum. That's what they say. I think sometimes we say that when a behavior occurs, we say, hey, it happened out of the blue. He just kicked a kid out of the blue, or he just screamed out of the blue, or he just did it all of a sudden, and you don't understand why. Right? But just because you didn't see what happened right before, it doesn't mean there's nothing that causes that person to do it. So, we have to see those things. But we have to understand that behavior occurs in a context. So, that context is this one. Behavior can be broken down into 3 parts: the antecedent, behavior, and the consequence. So, A, antecedent precedes the behavior. B, behavior is the observable or measurable act. C is what happens right after the behavior. So for C, what happens after the behavior? How does the people react after, for example, one kid kicks another, or a kid screams in the classroom? How does the environment react? So that's what the consequence is. But the thing is, we have to remove our negative concept of consequence, because we always think oh, this is the consequence of your action, right? It's like something negative. It's not always negative, and I will explain that to you later on. Wait. So actually, there's behaviors occurring, right? So when there's a behavior that's repeatedly occurring, that means that behavior is learned. So say, for example, if a behavior leads to an outcome, which is the consequence, but that outcome is desirable to the person, that means the behavior that he used will more likely occur in the future. If, for example, the antecedent, which precedes the behavior, signals the desire to achieve that certain consequence, then that kid or that student may already know what behavior will he use to get that certain consequence. Because, for example, I'll give you a certain example. For example, a kid who is nonverbal is thirsty. So he cannot speak, right? He cannot say anything. He's nonverbal. So maybe his only communication is grabbing or like screaming or crying because he cannot speak. So he's thirsty, and then he sees a juice in front of him, but he cannot reach it. And then the juice is beside an adult. Let's say there's an adult in front of him. So he doesn't know what to do, right? So initially what he tried was to scream. He screamed, "Ah!" He did that. So the adult who was beside the juice guessed or assumed that that's what he wanted. So he gave him the juice. The adult gave the student the juice. So because of that, he was able to receive what he wanted. The next time it occurred, the next time he sees a juice in the presence of the adult, his past experience told him that the best behavior to get the juice was to scream. So he tries again to scream, right? He tries again to scream. If it works, the behavior strengthens. More likely, if that situation occurs, then he will just scream to get the juice. So, as you can see, there's always a reason for a behavior to occur. And from here, we can really say that there's a relationship for this context. And that's what we call the learning history. So we learn. That's how we learn that's how we learn the behavior, through this context. Because there, in that situation, the antecedent was the juice in the presence of the adult. What was the behavior? The behavior was? The behavior, in that example, the behavior was, what did the student do? Scream, right? So the behavior was scream. What is the consequence? What happened after he screamed? What did the adult do? Yes, he gave the juice. So that is the relationship. As you can see, if you can just break down the situation, you will able to understand why the student is doing a certain behavior, right? So that's why it's very important to look at this context. So when we know this context, or what is exactly occurring, or why the behavior is occurring, we will see that the behavior is already predictable, right? So now that we know that, oh, there's a juice, and then there's the presence of an adult, he's gonna scream because he wants juice when he's thirsty, right? So you can predict that's gonna happen. So with this, when we understand the function, or when we understand the reason, it will help us know how to reduce the challenging behavior in the future. So B, as the behavior, we really need to know what it is. What are we looking at? We really need to define it as well. So defining it, like for example, screaming. You have to define screaming. How does screaming look like? Does it look like screaming as like shouting with raising hands, or like without maybe smiling? I don't know, but you have to define it, because screaming will be different from each and every person. So, but anyway, we'll be talking about that more later on. But first thing we have to do is always to define what B is, or at least know and define what the behavior we are targeting. Okay? So, 4 key principles of behavior. First, occurs in the context, and then serves as a function. So, all behavior occurs in a reason, even reflex behaviors. So, examples of reflex behaviors are blinking our eyes, right? For example, there's a wind, and then there's for example, an insect going into your eyes, our own reflex reaction is closing our eyes, right? So we blink our eyes to keep our eyes safe from harm, keep our eyes from dust, from any harmful things from getting in. Another example, but not reflexive, another example of it is of a behavior that occurs for a reason is we talk to a person to gain attention, right? To gain attention or to, to acquire answer from with your question. So that's another example. Most often you would find your kids behaving in the classroom or engaging in challenging behaviors in the classroom. But please know that these behaviors, they are using to try to communicate to us. It's their one way of communicating to people because they don't know how to communicate. That's why we're here. We're here to teach them how to properly communicate. What is the appropriate way of communicating? Right. So let's talk about antecedents a little bit more. So sometimes let's say in a kid's life, there are many things that is happening, right? That leads to a meltdown. For example, not having enough sleep, hunger, pain, sickness. Sometimes the kid cries if she's not or he is not feeling well. But then, if we are looking for challenging behaviors that keeps on occurring, but that also affects their daily lives, like for example, their learning. For example, they cry for 30 minutes and they missed already their class, right? Or they cry so much that, they weren't able to communicate with their parents or socialize with their parents or their friends. So these are the behaviors that we are talking about. But the thing is, if we're talking about these challenging behaviors, the things that I've mentioned earlier, sleep, lacking of sleep, illness, pain, those things will only escalate the challenging behavior. Most of the time, these challenging behaviors occur at a certain degree. It's not like for example, a typical kid cries at a certain amount of time, then they stop, right? For it to become a challenging behavior, it means that they could cry from 30 minutes to 1 hour non-stop, or 2 hours, let's say. They can flop on the floor for like half a day. They can lie down on the floor, and even if you ask them to stand up, they could do that for half the day without following your instructions, right? So it's like beyond the average, the average norm of their age level. So directly before, what does directly before mean? Directly before means that it really happens right before the behavior. Like what I said earlier, sometimes we miss out these things. Maybe we missed out the fact that we just said no to a student and then he suddenly cries. Or we missed out the fact that we just said it's time for bed while he's still playing with a game at home or in school, right? Or maybe while playing, you just grab him and say it's time to go to class or something like that, without any warning at all. So those things actually, the antecedents, what happened right before, we can actually control. These are the things that we can manipulate.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. There's cracked tea there if anyone would want some. You guys can grab it. You delivered earlier, but that came late, this came early. So.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Can I ask
Yes,
something?
sure.
Because you said before, kids scream out of nowhere, out of the blue. For example, there's a scenario inside a classroom. What mostly trigger a kids to shout and scream? And for example, if he lay down on the floor, do I need to pull him back, or I need to let him calm until he finish, or I let him go out in the class? Or
That one we will be talking about a little bit later. But that's really a good question. So, but what I'm trying to say about kids screaming out of the blue, what I'm trying to mention is that they don't really do that out of the blue. They do that. They do a behavior for a reason. They do a behavior because they wanted to communicate something. Maybe we missed out something. So that's why we're talking about, let's talk about antecedents, behavior, and consequences first, and then maybe we can talk more about it. But that's really a good question. All right. Anything else? None so far. All right. So just feel free to ask questions if you feel like there's some examples that I've given that's not so clear. So at least I can clarify things out, okay? All right. So that's for antecedent. So for behavior, what is behavior? Behavior is anything that a person says or does. So whatever you see, if I flap my hand, this is behavior. If I do this is a behavior. If I blink my eyes, that's behavior. If I wave my hair like that, that's a behavior, right? So this is what we're trying to target. This is what we're trying to target, right? So for our target behaviors, the behaviors that we are targeting really needs to be observable and measurable. So what do you mean by observable and measurable? You need to be able to see it, right? You need to be able to see it with your eyes. That makes it observable so that at least you can describe it to another person. For measurable, you need to be able to at least count it or tell how long it takes to finish, or like the amount of time he engages in that certain behavior. Say for example, for being measurable, how many times I did this. You can measure this one because you can count it, right? For measuring the time, say for example, for your kid, for your students, how long does he take to finish his crying? So from the start, from the moment he cried until the end. So how long does it take for him? So you have to make sure that the target behavior, at least, you are able to observe and you are able to measure. Because with that, eventually we will be able to track, oh, we're targeting this. Are we able to decrease it? Say for example, they started with, the crying started with 30 minutes and you want to decrease it to lesser time, like 20 minutes or 15 minutes or 5 minutes. So you won't be able to know that unless you take the duration or you take the time, right? Or say for example, there's a kid who's always like pushing or like say banging during class, right? So you want to decrease that because it's continuous. You want to decrease that. How would you decrease that? You don't know how much or how many times he does that. You'd want to know the number of times he does that so you can decrease. That's why we need it to be observable and measurable. Because the thing is, it's not only us, only one person who's working, but it's also like you, other people as well, right? So examples of behavior are shouting, crying, walking, jumping, writing, sleeping. Non-examples are, let's say, states. Feelings such as being sad, being stressed, being anxious. Why do I say that? Because when you say you're being sad, how do you count that? How do you observe that? It's quite hard, isn't it? Or like when you're stressed, how do you describe being stressed? There are so many ways that a person would show being stressed or being anxious, right? So, say for example, in that state, let's take a look at one state, like for example, being sad. In being sad, you can see some behaviors. Like for example, for being sad, one description would be like frowning or a little bit of crying. Frowning and crying are behaviors. So for being stressed, say for example, a person who is about to have an interview is a little bit stressed or a little bit nervous. He keeps on walking back and forth. He's stressed, but the behavior is walking back and forth, right? Or another example is that a person might keep on biting her fingernails while taking the exam because she's anxious. So being anxious is not a behavior, but biting the fingernails is, right? So we really have to make sure that the behaviors that we are targeting at least are really observable and measurable. So these things are clear. So that's it. So now we have a little exercise. So at least we can wake up a little bit. I want, how many are you? 1, 2, 3, 7. Ah. 8, okay. So I want you to split into 2 groups. 2 groups? No, 2 groups, not, no. Like 4 groups, sorry. 4 groups. Enough ba? Okay.
4 groups of 2? So get into partners?
I know, we can make it 3. Let's make it 3. Is John here? Ah, okay. Let's make it 3. It's just a simple question. 3 groups. And then the groups 1, 2, and then 3. Okay. Ah, okay, you're grouped. And then you're grouped, and then you're grouped. All right. So, you can just turn your chairs. I'll just, this. I'll give you this. And this. So, sorry. Where's my pen? I think I'm gonna have to borrow this one. I think in there you're gonna have to write yes or no, because from the questions you'll tell me if it's observable or measurable. Just write in the blank sheet yes, and the other blank sheet no. All right? Huh? Oo. Saglit lang yan. Yes or no lang po, pa-write sa, sa paper. Ayun, no. Sila. So, isang answer per group, you will have 1 answer. So, when I ask, hindi naman po. No na lang po. Yes or no, yes or no lang. And then, yon. So, when I ask the question, just usap kayo, and then when your answer is final, raise your answer. Magka-count naman po ako, if ever. Done? Sige, let's check if you're able to understand the concept of behavior being observable or measurable. So maybe I'll give you 30 seconds to answer at least and talk. The first question is, are the following behaviors are observable? Number 1, falling on knees, screaming, hitting hands on floor. Is that observable or measurable? Yes or no? You have 15 seconds to answer. Talk first. Talk first. Talk first, and then I'll let you know. Timer. Thank you. Wait. And then I'll ask you why. You'll have to be able to defend your answer. 1 more second. All right, time's up. Raise your answers. Yes. Okay, why? Why is it measurable? Oh, sorry. Why is it measurable? And
what you discussed earlier, you told before that we're screening, we need to measure how long it is, and for the next time, we know already what is the length or what is how many minutes it will be measured, how he screamed.
Good. Nice answers. Well done! Good job! Alright. Galing ah. Good. So at least I know you're able to understand what I'm trying to teach you this morning. Alright, so next one is purposely annoying brother, sister, or parent. You have 20 seconds. Purposely annoying brother, sister, and parents. Alright, time's up. Raise your answers.
Di ba pwedeng dalawang answer?
Hindi po. Answer, not yet. More time, more time. 10 more seconds. 10 more seconds. Remember, being observable, you have to be able to describe it at least. Ba? Nag-change?
Kasi dalawa lang ka eh.
It's cold. Alright. Time's up. Raise your answers. Have you decided yet?
Answer.
Answer, answer. What's your answer?
Yes or no?
We're just waiting for them. No, alright. Yes, the answer is no. Can you tell us why?
What I understand is that it's about it's all about feelings. You cannot measure it, and you cannot, I think you can observe it, yeah, but you cannot measure how long it's going to get.
That's right. Good job. Actually, there's not a feeling. It's like more of a cluster of behavior. But the thing is, annoying is not so clear. It's not as it's not easy to observe because there are so many forms of annoying someone. Like, for example, he could be annoying him by ignoring, he could be annoying someone by poking or shouting or stomping. So which one is it, right? We don't know. So that's why it's not that observable and measurable because you don't know which one is it and it's so vague and it's not clear, right? But good job. Good job. All right, the next one is blinking. Eight more seconds. All right, answers up? Yes. So can you tell us why blinking is observable and measurable?
Yeah, because you can measure the time.
Yes, and you can see it. You can see it at least, right? Very good. Well done. Next one is next one is a little bit tricky. No, not listening to mom and dad. Sorry. Keep on forgetting to start the timer. All right, time's up. I think. What's your What's your answer? Have you decided yet? Not yet. Do you need more time? You can tell me.
Mahiya itong grupong to.
Very
shy.
They are.
Shy.
I don't get that language.
She's very shy. Any answer? Not yet. No, haven't decided. You can just trace. Maybe take a guess. Not listening to mom and dad. Is that observable and measurable? No, and yes. So, what's the answer? Dun, 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 dun. The answer is no. Can you tell me why? Another person from your group, at least.
Because you don't know if they are listening to
You don't know the reason why they are not listening to their parents.
Say it again. Sorry, I didn't hear.
We don't know the reason, or we cannot observe the reason why they are not listening to their parents.
Yes, actually, it's not the reason, but the behavior itself, not listening, is not observable. I'll give you an example. I can be, I can be speaking to you, but your mind might be somewhere else. And I won't know that because you're looking at me, right? Or you can do blank stares. Or another example is, like a kid is writing and you're speaking to them. They respond, but they're not even looking. So how would you know if a person is listening or not, right? It's just in their mind. So it's not as observable. It's not observable, and it's not that measurable. Maybe you can say the behavior of looking and responding instead of like not listening, right? So the next one would be feeling happy. Is this behavior observable or measurable? Is this even a behavior? 5 more seconds. Not happy. Time's up. Is this observable or measurable? What's your answer? No. No? Okay, can you explain us why it's no?
For me, because feeling happy is not measurable, observable, because it is a feeling of the child, and we don't know what is.
Yes.
Yeah, and also I will add something.
Yes, sure.
Because there's two ways of happiness. Sometimes you're happy, you're laughing because you just want to laugh, and sometimes you go, but inside you're not happy as well. So I think it's measurable. It's true happiness or not?
Yes.
Not real happiness.
About you.
So thank you for your answer. You're right. Actually, feeling happy, like my previous examples were sad, anxious, stressed, right? It's a state. Though it's a state, we feel it. It's not really a behavior because it's a feeling. But it shows a behavior. What behaviors do you see when you're happy? You smile, you laugh. So those are behaviors. Happy is not a behavior. So it's not really it's observable and measurable though, but it's not a behavior. But it's not measurable because it's not so clear, right? All right. So the next one is last one, laughing. Is it observable or measurable? Observable and measurable. Time's up. Is it observable or measurable? Confused? Is it confusing? Laughing. When a kid laughs. When you see someone laughing, like that. Are you able to observe that or measure that? Time's up. Raise your answers. I think the other group is not finished yet. You can wait for them.
Yes.
50-50. Half. Yes and no, depending on their answers. So what's your final answer?
Yes.
No. So laughing, good job. Laughing is observable and measurable because you can see when someone is laughing. If the laugh is too long, you don't have to count the ha, right? You can just per ha, you don't have to count that, of course. You can just take the duration, take the time. Start from the beginning he laughs and then stop the timer when it ends. So you can at least count the amount of time or the duration of time they're spending for that. Right? So thank you for your cooperation. That's our first activity. And you did really well.
Yes, sir.
The next one is So this one, I think we will need the help of our therapist after this. So this, I will be playing a video. Where's my... Where is it? So that's laughing. So here, I would like you to... Ah. No, sorry. Not that one, the next one. Sorry. That one. So what is the antecedent for this video? The behavior. Let's take a look at the behavior first. What's the behavior? Laughing. Laughing is the behavior. So what is antecedent again? Antecedent is what occurs before the behavior. Let's take a look at the video again. Ay, sorry. Ano yan? So what's the antecedent? What occurs before laughing? What occurred before laughing? Which one? Boo. The guy was saying boo and then he laughs. Then he says boo again and then he laughs. So, like what we said, antecedent occurs before, right before the behavior. Right. Let's take a look at another example. Wait. Sorry. How about this one? Uy.
Connor, we're watching.
More paper. So what's the behavior? Laughing. Good. What's the antecedent? Yes, you're right. Good job. The mom is ripping the paper and then he laughs. So good job. That's the antecedent. So now, in your groups, I want you to write your own definition of laughing. How would you describe for yourself? How would you describe laughing? Yes, and then if you have any questions, the therapists are here to help out. Assist lang sila, if ever. Opo, there's a blank space here. In your workbook, it says, what is your definition for laughing? So that's where you're gonna write your own definition of laughing. Not necessarily here, not necessarily this video, but your own perception and definition of laughing. How would you define laughing? For example, high pitch, low pitch. All right. Time's up. Who wants to go first? Volunteer. Volunteer. One representative from each group will share your definition or description of how laughing is or what
Right, so I will
you think.
choose now my group. This is my group, so I'm very
Wow.
So laughing is smiling with sounds, and how long it takes depends on how big the smile and how loud it is. And laughing is the continuous making happy sounds.
Ah, good. Nice definition. Yay! Okay, next.
Abby's group, Abby's group.
Ay, man.
Definition for laughing is giggling. Yeah. Then smiling with tears. And sometimes laughing with running in the classroom.
Running. Yes. You're right. Other people do laugh while running, right?
And laughing with the body and head movement.
Right. It's hard to laugh without your head moving. So rigid. Okay. Last but not the least.
I think laughing is feeling or emotions that reflect what is the kids saw it. When they saw some silly things, they laugh out loud. Sometimes out of control, too much laugh. You say them as they color pale, and then sometimes tears come out, and sometimes in a lucky way they parted because of the yeah. So that's it. Yeah.
Good. All your definitions are actually good. But I want to ask you this. Hearing those definitions, what do you observe? What did you observe hearing? For example, your definition, and your definition.
Showing that the kids is happy.
Yes, but I mean, comparing your definition from hers and this group, what do you observe?
Laughing is an emotional. It's physical. It's from physical movement of the body.
Yes. Are they different? Are your definitions the same or different? Different, right?
There's a connect.
Yes, there are similarities.
Yeah, there's a connection.
You're right, which is good. There are similarities, but the definitions are different, right? So that's why, as you can see, in your description, in your definition, each and every person, if I'm not mistaken, laughs differently. That's why your definitions are different from each other, right? So that's why it's very important to define behaviors. Because when you define, for example, you have your own definition of behavior, right? So say, for example, the definition of your laughing behavior is laughing while crying with tears. So say, for example, laughing is your target behavior. So you're only targeting the laughing while crying. You're not targeting anything else, right? And that definition differs from one kid to another. That's why your definition per kid has to be very specific. You have to be very specific. But your definitions are really great, really great. I know, and I've noticed that you really have put a lot of effort on it, and I can see that it can be observable and measurable as well. So now I want you to think of your kids in the classroom, the kids that you're handling. I want you to see what behaviors do you think you have to define. Specific behaviors you have to target and define. So if you have, it's just in your place, you can write it down, and then maybe after a minute or two, one or two persons from this group can share.
Why is a good relationship important? For you to live longer, be healthier, or to feel richer. At House of Hope, we value a long-lasting relationship. That's why we tailor our programs to create a harmonious relationship between our services and clientele. House of Hope is your professional service provider for home-based applied behavior analysis, or ABA therapy and consultation for individuals with autism. We also provide speech therapy, occupational therapy, and shadow teaching services in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and the Northern Emirates. In addition to that, we have a team of highly qualified, trustworthy, and well-experienced registered behavior technicians as our ABA therapists and shadow teachers who are ready to provide for your needs. All our programs are supervised by a leading board-certified behavior analyst with multicultural experience here in the United Arab Emirates and abroad. To know more about House of Hope, visit our website at www.houseofhope.center or call us at 056-398-4783. House of Hope. We will brighten up your day.